I hope everyone out there is enjoying their Independence Day weekend. Here on the north central coast of Florida, we're having a bit of a weather event, so I'm not sure if it's going to be conducive to watching fireworks or not. But in today's video, I would like to talk about the concept of perception being reality as it applies to quote unquote Independence Day. Now, normally, we talk about this kind of stuff in detail just over at the Patreon channel, but this particular topic, I think, deserves a bit of a larger audience. Now, we're going to do a much deeper dive into this at some point in the future over there, but this video is going to make people ask themselves questions. And stick around to the end, because especially for you married folks out there, both men and women, I'm going to ask a series of questions that would make you think very critically about this idea of an Independence Day. Now, of course, we celebrate this to celebrate the independence of the colonies from the King of England. But let's start with a hypothetical. This is an actual picture of my backyard. This past spring, I put up a fence. Now, of course, to put up a fence on your property, you need to know where your property lines are, so that you don't trespass. Now, the house over here to screen right was empty at the time. The property is owned by a large rental corporation. If I had wanted to, I could have had the fence installers put it 3 feet, 4 feet over. The new folks moving in wouldn't have any idea where the property lines were because, well, they're renters. It would have made my life a lot easier because of some other features that are behind the fence here. But nevertheless, I still had to adhere to the guidelines of the county and city here in Florida that I live in. I had to make sure my fence was not over the line, not trespassing. Now that's an interesting thing because people would wonder, well, who determined what those lines were and how did they determine what that was? Well, the long and the short of it is this. Government must exist to determine what private property is. Because without government, without common law, there would be no consensus. This is, of course, the county I live in. Break it down even farther to the little city. They got it broken up into different sections that they've labeled with letters, and they've given them names. And even if you live out in the county, you still have property lines that are delineated by at least a county level of government, if not the state. This is just an example of this particular concept, that what we call our property cannot exist without there being a common law government. Otherwise, it would just be law of the jungle. Whoever was bigger and stronger and meaner would determine what you did or did not have. If there wasn't common law, for example, if a new neighbor moved in, purchased the property, said, hey, your fence is 2 feet over the line, well, I could just get my buddies together and we could go, well, convince him, let's just say in those terms, that my fence was right where it should be, and just intimidate him physically. See, that wouldn't work in a civilized society. See, we don't necessarily care about when we go to a shopping mall about the lot lines here, because you're only there temporarily. Some are larger, some are smaller, and nobody's charging for it. It's for free. It's just something that's accepted. But let's think about this for 1 minute in the context of the Founding Fathers arriving at this new place, this new land where there were no lines. And they could just spitball, thumbnail. Okay, generally that hillside is mine now. I'm going to go tack a bunch of little pieces of sticks into the ground and put flags on them and say, okay, this is my property now. This is ours. That over there, do what you want. Find a hill of your own. They seem to be endless. You see, there were lines. They weren't labeled, and there were no maps, but there were lines, and there were inhabitants, and it wasn't unknown. It was quite well known that there were the Shoshone and the Navajo and the Timucuan Indians and all sorts of different groups that generally operated in certain areas. But as we can see, things got relabeled and remapped, and this is what this country looked like when the Constitution was signed. Northwest Territory, what we know to be Tennessee, was unorganized. Florida was still part of Spain. See, what were we really being independent from? It's kind of very contradictory that men who held slaves, who were driving people off of their land, were, creating a holiday to celebrate independence. Now, it goes even further, and this is where things are probably I'm going to lose people, because they're not going to see the correlation. This is a scene, of course, from Walking Dead. The actor John Bernthal, Sarah Wayne Caius, season 1. She is married to a guy that she now believes is dead. Why does she believe that he's dead? Because this guy told her so. Now, he doesn't know for sure. He thinks maybe it might be the case that his former partner is dead. So, based on this, she reclaims her own agency. Remember this term. Reclaims her own agency and says, now, I believe in my mind I am no one else's property. Therefore, I can do whatever I wish. There is nothing governing my behavior now other than me, other than the thoughts of my mind. You see, her husband at the time is somewhat a Schrodinger's cat argument, meaning that he can be thought of both as alive and dead. Whatever she decides to accept at that moment in time, because she has no proof that he's dead or that he's alive, she can make her own decisions. He doesn't know either. See, this is kind of a really weird thing about perception being reality. Sometimes the perception to us that is the most agreeable is the one that we accept. See, the perception of independence is a great thing. No, I've never heard anybody say independence is a bad thing. But sometimes it's just perception. And sometimes we can be hypocrites. This scene bothered a lot of people, even way back in 94, because the perception here was, this is of course a scene from The Getaway. It was originally a 1970s movie. They redid it in 1994, where this guy, perception that his property, Jennifer Tilly, his wife, his property is being unfaithful. And he's tied up in a bathroom having to listen to it. So it really made a lot of people uneasy. But did anybody ask the question? Are women property? Only if they choose so to be in marriage? See, and this is from Outlander. Back in the 18th century when men could discipline their wives. And everybody's like, oh, he can't do that. He can't possibly do that. There's no way he can do that. That is totally wrong. Well, at the time, people are saying Bible scripture says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Why would you not do this for your wife if you thought it would be better for her? See, at what point? At what point do people reclaim their agency? Meaning, I've chosen to not be independent, be in a relationship, but now, when things go wrong, I'm choosing to be independent again. And do I need to go to government? Do I need to go to government to reclaim my agency? The Patriot Nurse put this up over at her Patreon channel. This poll. 1/4 of Americans are open to taking up arms against the government. Now, it's only a survey of 1,000 people done by the University of Chicago. So it's not really a well-done poll at all. It's too small of a sample size, And the idea here they're trying to put is that there's a group of Americans that are ready to just destroy all concept of government. Not just the Joe Biden government, the concept of government. Yet it's the government that gives people their perception of property ownership, their perception that we are independent, their perception of marriage, relationships, all of that. Now, what if, in this particular occasion, zombie apocalypse, total collapse, even if he was alive. Say she didn't like him anymore. Say she wanted to be divorced. No way to legally get a divorce. She's married forever. Because there's no government to give her the divorce papers. Still looking forward to grid down? Shit hits the fan, lights go out? No chance to reclaim your agency, ladies, and men too. No chance to, either in your eyes, morally, or any other way, say that you are technically not married anymore. Thomas Hobbes. To this war of every man against every man, this also inconsequent that nothing can be unjust. The notions of right and wrong, justice and injustice, have there no place. Where there is no common power, there is no law. Where no law, no injustice. Force and fraud are in war the cardinal virtues. See, as we see Bitcoin now collapse, the entire fraud and Ponzi scheme, and this is tied to this. They're now saying, well, it's a new kind of property, and that's why people don't understand it, and that's why they don't want to own it. I'll give you this link, and you can read this nonsense of how they're trying to rewrite history. But in a capitalist society, where capitalism is number one, the only and most important thing you can have is your own agency. Meaning you choose moment to moment to moment what it is that defines you as a free and individual person. You see, contracts, those can be renegotiated. The art of the deal, so to speak. You see, it can never be in that war shall preserve life and peace destroy it. It used to be, years ago, what defined a state, what defined an area, was the ability of that king or that ruler to both provide for its inhabitants and defend it. Well, how does that apply to our individual agency? It gives us a headache. I loved this quote from Calvin and Hobbes, Hobbes being the tiger. It's sad how some people's grip on their lives is so precarious that they'll embrace any preposterous delusion rather than face an occasional bleak truth. Now, here are those questions. How could anyone who believes in freedom or liberty or independence or capitalism be against prostitution? How? Does a woman, or a man, I guess, have his or her own agency to determine at a moment's notice what they are or are not willing to do in exchange for anything else? You know, at some point in this movie, the Jennifer Tilly character, the woman, decides at some point she's done with her husband. Now, she doesn't go legally get a divorce. But do we need government to claim or reclaim our own agency in cases like this? Shouldn't she just legally be able to say in a moment, I now perceive myself to no longer be married? I now perceive myself to no longer be married. Should a man be able to do the same thing? I want to reclaim my own agency, and I do not need government to do that. I'm going to reclaim my own agency. See, the obligation of subjects to the sovereign is understood to last as long and no longer than the power lasteth by which he is able to protect them. So that's my question. on this Independence Day, where we value independence above all things. No one's going to control us. We are going to be the master and commander of our ship. Should we be able to, without permission of government, be able to reclaim, especially women out there, because this is kind of particular with them, reclaim your agency without having to get a lawyer, without having to have all the money to go file this paperwork and that paperwork and this other paperwork. Should that be the case? Should I, if I have enough big, strong buddies, be able to move my fence 6 feet over just because I can and nobody can do anything about it? Let them come try. If I have that ability, should I be able to trespass just because I don't agree with where the lot lines are? Nope. I think I should be entitled to more property here. I'm a better steward of my property anyway than this big corporation is of this one. It would be better for the land in general and the neighborhood in general if I were to claim, in fact, you know what? I'm just going to claim 10 feet. I'm just going to take the line of the fence, move it over 10 feet, and I'm just going to claim it and say because it's the right thing to do, in my eyes, that therefore it makes it legal. I'm just going to take it because it'll be better if we do. Ring a bell? We're just going to take it because it'll be better if we do. This is kind of a thought exercise that a lot of people don't like to do, but this is what we do over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. This is the idea of command of the mind, so to speak. So I will leave it there. But once again, have a happy Independence Day with your loved ones. Be safe. Of course, whether you're partaking in beverages or you're handling things that explode, better safe than sorry. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.